We've been hearing a lot about the relentless heat wave gripping much of Europe as of late, and now it's our turn. A major multi-day heat event is set to infiltrate southern Ontario this week, prompting Environment Canada to issue a heat alert. Joining us now to discuss more about this heat wave and the risks it poses to Canadians is Environment Canada climatologist David Phillips. Thanks so much for joining us today, David.
Thank you, Jasmine.
David, can you just begin with briefly expanding on the heat event that is set to hit southern Ontario this week? The first of the season, actually. Where is it coming from?
Well, it's originating in the United States, like many of these do, a large high pressure area that is going to drift into Ontario, parts of Quebec, and just lock in for a week. I mean, we're going to see temperatures today begin to get above 30. That's often a mark of a hot day, and spread all week. I look from one part of the beginning of the week to the end, and I just see nothing but 30-degree temperatures. July 4th, July 1st, Canada Day, we see temperatures 34 degrees. I mean, that's probably 7, 8, 9 degrees warmer than it would be one of the warmest July 1st that we've had in a few years. So the other thing too, it's the heat. And the first one, and I always think, Jasmine, that the first heat wave is the worst in terms of health. People are just not used to it. They need to get acclimatized to it. But also what's going to make this heat particularly insufferable is the fact that the humidities are going to be so high. We've had that wet spring, and all that water that's standing around is going to evaporate. The crops are growing, and of course, we're seeing Gulf of Mexico air. So it's going to be high humidities up into the 40s, high temperatures, and it's going to be morning, noon, and night. I mean, we're quite worrisome are the nighttime temperatures that just don't drop below 20 or 22 degrees. And so I would think that people are going to begin to suffer health way and what have you. Some people will like it, but boy, this is sometimes tough to take, especially we've only had maybe 1 or 2 days in May and early June where we had some heat, but this is going to be the long duration of it, which will be particularly upsetting.
I want to turn our attention to Europe now. That heat wave has become deadly. I have to ask you, is there a connection between the extreme heat that we're seeing in Europe and the heat wave that's, preparing to take over Ontario this week?
Well, Jasmine, it's certainly not connected synoptically or meteorologically. However, they're connected from climate change. I mean, we know that, Europe is the second, is warming the continent, warming up the fastest than any continent. We've seen these clearly. Nature could not have produced this kind of heat we've seen in Europe, record-breaking, smashing records all over the place. And so that clearly is nature couldn't do it. It's coming from our tailpipes and smokestacks. People are adding to it. And we could not have seen this kind of heat 20 years ago, but we're seeing it now. And similarly here in Ontario or North America, we're seeing excruciatingly heat. We had it certainly in the United States. We were sort of slow in coming in Canada, but we've certainly seen more of these. And I think what's sort of interesting, Jasmine, is that what we're seeing is climate change are making these events come earlier. They're lasting longer. They're more intense. And we're also seeing this nighttime warming, that these almost tropical nights that are occurring. So, hey, it's all related to the fact that nature, but it's also people that are creating these kind of abnormally warm and quite concerning heat. Heat in Western Europe, for example, is beginning to cut back, but the casualties continue. I mean, long after the heat leaves, people are still dying from the extraordinary torrid temperatures that they've had to endure. And we certainly will see casualties here in Ontario and Quebec and in the United States from this current heat wave that we're beginning to start.
And I'm sure there are groups that are more vulnerable. So who is most at risk during a heat wave? And what are some signs of heat exhaustion that people need to watch out for?
Well, there are clearly, the majority of population can probably withstand the kind of heat, but infants who breathe have a different respiratory kind of practice than we have. Seniors, people whose circulatory, respiratory systems are not as equipped, say, as younger people. People working outdoors, for example. Everybody's affected, but some are a little bit more than others. And I think that we have to do is just make common sense. I think one of the more important things thing is keep an eye on the forecast, know what's coming up, do tomorrow what you could have done today to avoid the heat if it's going to be cooler tomorrow. Why the first heat wave is the worst is because we're just not acclimatized to it. We almost have to be shocked into getting and doing the things. And so people can suffer from heat cramps, heat exhaustion, heat stroke. I mean, these are clearly hospitalization kind of issues. And so my best advice to people was to be looking on your friends and relatives, your neighbors. Make sure that they're not delirious under this situation, that people have a way to go to get maybe air conditioning at a movie or the mall, or just bring them a nice drink. Keep the blinds closed. And by all means, stay out of the sun. We measure temperatures in the shade. When that sun is, we can add, so it's 34 degrees on Canada Day. Well, you can be sure that it's probably 40, 41 degrees in the sun. So avoid the sun and wait it out. It'll eventually end.
And finally, I want to talk briefly about the challenge for those living without air conditioning. We are seeing nighttime temperatures increase, over the years. So two questions in one, forgive me for this, but why are overnight temperatures failing to cool down, and what can Canadians do to protect themselves at night?
Well, you're right about the nights. Jasmine, when you look at the statistics, more people die from heat waves at night. And the reason is this. I mean, the sun has gone down. There's usually, hey, you're not into the torrid temperatures, but the ventilation usually drops. And then you don't have places with air conditioning. There's no movie theaters or malls are closed. And so it's just, and the other thing too is the body can sometimes withstand the kind of temperatures. And then you've got that nice breeze blowing in, but then it all of a sudden cuts down. And so it makes nighttime temperatures, the buildings are heated and they can retain that heat at night, and it just becomes a more stressful and painful kind of a situation. So it's really, we see that globally, Jason. It's the deaths at night, the tropical nights that seem to bring people down to their knees on something like this.
Mm-hmm. All right, David, always great speaking with you. Thanks so much for your time and insight today.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Bye-bye.
That is David Phillips, climatologist with Environment and Climate Change Canada.